Welcome back, everybody, to the show. I am your host, as always, Jay Villain, aka That Villain Jay. And tonight we have a very, very special treat for you. An extremely special treat. A little bit of predictive and wishful thinking tonight, boys and girls. Gals, guys, gals, and non-binary pals out there for you. A little bit of wishful thinking. This is going to be the 5 things that I want to see out of Kamigawa. Okay, now I want to get into kind of the nuts and bolts of it. Okay, I don't want to say, okay, I want to see ninjas, I want to see cool art, I want to see dragons. We all want to see that. What am I specifically hoping that we can see a resurrection of in Kamigawa? What do I hope Kamigawa does for the meta, for everything else going forward, and brings to the game? So we're going to go over that tonight. Before we do, I just want to remind you to tenderly press that like button. Gently press that subscribe button. Or else, well, guys, the like and subscribe will come and brutally maul you if you don't. And that is a YouTube werewolf, so you got to be careful. It's right down there. Just press that button for me. Join us on our stream every night at twitch.tv/slash thatvillainj for all the live streaming goodness. We would love to have you here. We would love to see you. We'd love to hear your opinion. You can check these live and in person. Gunnar Werher, first time streamer, shout out to you. Get your first streamer shout out by come by. And of course, come by the Discord. We'd love to have you in our Discord community where you can share your opinion, see the Kamigawa spoilers live and in person and in real time. And of course, get deck help and all the other things. I also, guys, please leave a comment. What are you looking for in Kamigawa? What is your personal wish list in Kamigawa? That is going to be really cool. What are you looking for? What do you want to see? What do you want it to shake up? I want to hear your opinion. Let's get a good debate going in those comments. That's what I want to see. So, the number one thing, and this is going to be a strange one, guys. I'm going to get started right away. Number one, the first thing I'd love to see in Kamigawa is something that's been missing from the game for almost a year. Maybe not a year, but at least 6 months now, going on 6 months. Ever since rotation, we haven't had anything going in. And even before rotation, it wasn't that popular. But that is triple color support. Triple color support. Abzan, Mardu, Temur, Sultai, Jund, Jeskai, all these things, all these crazy things, Esper, Grixis. There hasn't been that many triple color meta decks in a long time because the support for triple color just isn't there. We have no triple color lands. We have no triple color cards currently in standard. And it's just a big part of the game that's missing. I love triple color, especially Abzan and Mardu. And I would love to see triple color make a return, especially with this kind of neon world we're going into. Let's see some mix-ups, man. Let's get into some Naya. Let's get into some all sorts of crazy stuff. Let's see some blending. Let's see some samurais, and let's see ninja/samurais that are, that are Esper or something like that, or Jeskai or something. Let's really mix it up. I'd love to see some great triple colors. I'm a little bit biased because Khans of Tarkir and Dragons of Tarkir and Fate Unraveled, is it Fate Unraveled, was one of my favorite sets, and that really focused heavily on triple. That's where we got the words Abzan and Mardu and all them from, Sultai. So I'd really love to see some returns of some triple color legendaries, some triple color cards, and some mana support for them to make it a little bit more viable. And it gives you variety in deck build. It makes making a triple color deck viable instead of just the old single mono or double. It really does open up that color pie a lot, and it gives you the variety. So that's kind of the number one thing that I want to see. The last time we saw that was probably in Ikoria, which feels like it was 100 years ago. So definitely want to see a return of that. The other thing that I would like to see are some useful mechanics. Okay, I hate to call out Crimson Vow like this, man. Blood tokens were cool, but did anybody care about cleave or training? Honestly, did anybody ever run a cleave deck or a training deck? You technically could run a blood token deck, but that was about the only useful mechanic. Day and night cycle were very cool. I like how they implemented them, but you couldn't focus a whole deck around them. It was just incidental things that happened. There's no mechanical. You used to be able to run flash decks. other stuff like that. Whole mechanical decks, menace decks, any kind of new mechanic that we can focus a deck around that is going to be on a lot of cards. Like I said, training and cleave, who plays with them anymore? They're incidental. They're not anything that you can hang a whole deck around. They're just, if they're there, that's fine. If they're not, they're not. They're sidelined mechanics. They're very weak. They don't really change the game. They don't affect the meta at all. I want to see some mechanics that are in the game that are going to really, really shake the meta. Even as much as I didn't like Strixhaven, lessons are still a big thing in the meta. Doing lessons and hitting learning and hitting that sideboard for, you know, mascot exhibition stuff, you can still kind of hang decks around those things. They still have a big effect. Even stuff like that is enough. That Foretell, we still have Foretell. We're still dealing with Foretell to this day from Kaldheim. I don't think anybody is going to be able to see training or cleave down the road. So I do want to see some mechanics that are focusing, that we're focusing down on, and really seeing some shakeups with it. I know we're already going to have ninjutsu, probably Bushido or something like that, maybe Aijutsu or something, but I'd like to see some new stuff that'll really shake up the meta. And speaking of shaking up the meta, I personally, because I love building the decks, number 3, guys, is better tribal support. And I don't just mean for the specific builds. It was nice to have the tribal support. We had the lords. You know, we had Edgar Markov helping vampires. We had, you know, certain things helping werewolves. There were lords for different specific species. But way back in the day, we used to have stuff for specific colors. Basically, all colors get a certain bonus. Even your enemy's colors, they get a certain bonus. We also had artifacts like Icon of Ancestry and Vanquisher's Banner that had other secondary effects aside from adding +1/+1 to everybody of a specific type. They also added certain things like if you cast a card of that chosen type, you would get a card to draw or something like that. You'd be able to scry. I'd love to see a little bit more tribal support aside from just specific tribal. The only one that really has tribal support, if you're trying to run tribal any other color that's not white, right now you have stuff like Paladin class, Rally the Ranks, Glorious Anthem, all these bonuses that mono white does, and you're better off just building a tribe in white or mixing in white in it if you really, really want to focus on just buffing a whole bunch of creatures. And I'd love to see that focus go back to creature decks, where I can say, hey, if I choose giants, all of my giants get a buff, you know. I'd love to see some generic, if I choose goblins, all my goblins get a buff. I'd love to see some generic tribal support, either in artifacts or anything like that. If we had, like, you know, an awesome katana or something like that, you know, the katana of the high clans, and whatever clan you chose, if you chose that specific thing's goblins, as long as a goblin has this katana equipped, all other goblins, whatever. I'd love to see that. That would be really, really fun. Shift it more to a ground game, which I enjoy. Number 4, guys. What is number 4 on my wish list? It's going to be a 2-for in this one. I don't want to see... I know we already have one of them. I think it's been spoiled. I won't spoil it for you. But please, Wizards, stop making board wipes. Oh my god, it seems like every single set we have 2, 3, 4, 5 board wipes. I understand Control is a big part of the game, but man, Control gets all the best stuff lately, man. I really, really don't want to see... We're spoiled for board wipes right now. Used to be back in the day, you had Wrath of God and Armageddon. Maybe you had a Megiddo the Lion or something like that. But nowadays, Black has board wipes. Red has board wipes. White has board wipes. I think the only one... I mean, Blue has board wipes of pushing everybody back to their hand. I think the only one that doesn't is Green. And they just have stompers. So, I mean, we are spoiled for choice on board control. Absolutely spoiled for choice on board control. What I'm praying is that we slow this down. I want to see a shift away from control. I feel like the top meta decks are always control, and I'd love to see a ground game or an aggro deck take over again as the as one of viable meta. We haven't had a mono red ground game top meta since probably for a while now. I think since Eldraine left. Since we lost that Embercleave. And I know it's saying, oh, I want to go back to that. Well, I don't want it to be busted, but I want it to at least be viable, man. I don't know a red deck that's super viable right now. Because there's so much board control right now. So please, let's cool it on the board wipes, guys. Let's take a load off on the board wipes. Let's just pull that back a little bit, okay? And just ease off the control pedal real quick. Maybe people disagree with all the Gandalfs will disagree with me and say no, board wipes are essential. I'm an old school player. There used to be not as many. I feel like with the amount we have right now, I think you could add them up, and there's probably about 10 vibe. There's Doomscar, Path of Peril, Meathook Massacre. I can't even think of them all. Green Board Wipe, Earthquake Fisher. Yeah, Earthquake and Fisher. There are so many options to just completely clear the board right now. Cyclone Summoner is the one that pushes everyone back to your hand in blue. What else do we have? We have Divine Purge for everything 3 or less. We have... there's just so many, man. Blood on the Snow. We're spoiled for choice with board wipes. Let's ease off the gas on that one. I think that's all. I've said enough about it. Obviously, I'm passionate about it. Let's move away. And number 5. This is going to be a weird one to explain. I'm going to try to explain myself on this one. I want to see some mythic rares that are less niche. This is a weird one. Do you know what I mean by less niche mythic rares? I feel like the mythic rares that we've been having coming out, and I know everybody who plays Arena can agree with this. Your rare list always like you have 100 commons, you have 50 uncommon wilds, you have 2 rare wilds, and 10 mythic rare wilds. It seems to me that the rares are more useful than the mythic rares because the mythic rares are so niche. They do one thing amazingly, but they're not good across the board. Does that make any sense? Like, take for example a Planeswalker like Kaya. Kaya is really good in token decks, but that's it, and she's a mythic rare. That's all she's good for is token decks. That's it. She has no other function or utility outside of that. And then you take another mythic rare, off the top of my head, to say, trying to think of a good mythic rare out of that. Any other mythic rare that has a good generic purpose. The only one that I can think of that's amazing is Meathook Massacre as mono black, that has a generic board wipe purpose. It's not really, it's in the theme of all of black. I want to see more of that. It's not niche. It's gain and drain and mass destruction. It fits within the realm of mono black. I feel like the mythic rares for me, have just been a miss lately. I'm rarely ever crafting them because there's such specific situations that they need to get into. You know, whenever you cast a blue spell, you may pay 2, and if you pay 2, you can look at the top 3 cards of your library. When you look at the top 3 cards of your library, one of them you can put in your hand, the other 2 you can put in your graveyard. Like, and they do really amazing stuff, but they're generally very expensive, and they're very specific on what they do. They're like finely crafted pocket watches, and those are not useful in everyday situations. There's no real utility to them. I understand mythic rares are supposed to be kind of that one big banger, but I just feel like I'm not playing with them, and I think that everybody else can relate to that. You know, it's always a meme that I have no rare wilds left, but I have 10 mythic rare wilds left because none of them are really worth it. So that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. I'd like to see some really amazing creatures, really amazing artifacts, legendary artifacts and other stuff, spells and stuff that really, really help their color out a lot. You know what I mean? At least one in every color that, wow, that's one that I've got to get. That's a staple in every deck that I do. So I'd like to see that. So those are my 5 mechanical wish lists for Kamigawa. I'm not going to go into what I think the story needs to be, what I think that returning characters or themes or anything like that. I'm just talking about pure mechanics. That's what I'd like to see. What I'd like to know from you is, what would you like to see coming out of Kamigawa? What is your wish list? What do you want to see? Do you agree with me? Am I crazy? Am I completely wrong? What do you want to see happen? So let's get it going, guys. Let's chat it up in the chat right there. Come on by the Discord and tell me. Hopefully, we're gonna have some more reviews soon. I'm really excited for it. I'm really bored of building Crimson Vow decks. We've been here for 2 sets. It's time to leave Innistrad. We had a blast. We had a great time. But it's time to get out of here and move on to Neon Dynasty. So until next time, guys, I've been Jay Villain, and you've been great. Bye bye.